Hey, sheepdogs. I've had some good windshield time in today where I can spend some time kind of catching up. And it's been a while since I've been able to do this. And if I've been driving, I've been on the phone a lot. And so one of the things that I would share with you guys is, and this is me being very real, is I'm a real person with a real marriage and real bills. And I think sometimes we can put people on pedestals and not realize they're real people. So I want you guys to know that and remember that I'm a real person, but I'm going to be very real with you. So there's a lot of times as a husband, you don't want to do things and whatever. And I'll be visiting with the guys that I chaplain, and we're talking about doing life right, doing life God's way. And you guys have heard me talk about the way that I prioritize life is my relationship with God, and then being a husband, and being a father, and then being my brother's keeper, which means my ministry as a chaplain, being a cop, being there for my buddies, takes a backseat to my family. My wife is more important. And because as I've said many times, and it's something that really echoes and rattles around in my empty brain, is that when we're old and gray, the badge and the bad guys won't be there for us, but hopefully our families will. And so I've had some situations recently where there have been two, in one case it was a young lady that I was talking to, that she works for a company that I do some business for, an entity, and her husband's in law enforcement. And so typically my ministry as a chaplain is to men, but it's also to law enforcement. I've got a few guys around that I'm blessed to call friend or whatever, that I might be their chaplain, but a few veterans or what have you, a firefighter or two. But basically my time is spent with law enforcement. Well, in this case, having a real life conversation and with this young lady, and I wanted her to meet my wife, because I call my wife my she chaplain, and she actually does an amazing business working from the house and has relationships with dozens of women. She's got little sisters and daughters, and she's got like her big sisters and moms out there. She's got these great relationships where they love each other, and I really got to see that. I actually talked to my wife about this morning. I got to see this when we had a death in the family recently. Someone very close to my wife passed away, and when that happened, my wife's tribe rallied around her, and I would say a half dozen of them attended the funeral. That's huge. And people in my tribe, the law enforcement thin blue line tribe, were like, hey, let her know that she's in our prayers. But her tribe showed up to the funeral, and that's not me putting my people down at all. It's not what I mean. But her tribe were there for her, and I've got that with my guys. And this young lady needed that in her life, and her husband's in law enforcement. He's not somebody that I actively work with or chaplain, but I was encouraging her to get to know my wife. And I said, Scripture says older women teach younger women how to live, and it's a very specific verse that calls women to that. It's throughout Scripture that it's for men. Men are to do this. But it's a very specific scripture in Timothy that calls out women and says this is a thing you're to do. And my wife really does that, and she's very real with these women. We need accountability. We need somebody ahead of us on the journey that can mentor us, but we need people behind us that we can offer them a hand up and help them to move forward. So I was having a conversation with one of the guys that I chaplain over the weekend, and I gave him my wife's number for his wife to talk to, because they're young in their marriage, and they're, I think, younger in their walk with the Lord, newer to that walk. So we're having this great conversation about life and God. And I told him, I am not perfect, and I really try. I lean into my marriage, and I really try to lean into my relationship with God. I mean, God knows how much I need to improve that, but I really try to lean into that and be the man God called me to be. I'm convicted of things, even as I say this to you, that I don't do right, that I need to work on. And that's just how God works, and our relationship with God works. It's got to be active and breathing and learning and growing, or it's dying. If our relationship with God, it's sort of like paddling upstream. If you're not paddling, you're going the wrong way. And so anyway, I wanted him. He met my wife over the weekend and was laughing, and there was some joking going on, and he was like, he's like, hey, I think we need to get our wives together. So I passed my number on to my I said that wrong. I was looking over and checking on an accident and making sure that the officers there were good. But I looked over. There's a huge buildup of traffic going to that accident, and so I looked over and it distracted me. But I gave him her number to pass on to his wife, and I said, this is really one of those put your money where your mouth is moments, because I really try to live real and be real and practice what I quote unquote preach. And so if I say something, I try to mean it. I try to mean it and live it so that people will. His wife and my wife, I have no doubt, are going to become friends. And they're going to have real conversations. And that means my wife is going to talk about real things. And his wife is going to discover I'm a real person. So if he goes home and says, yeah, Paul was talking about this and says this, and his wife goes, he's full of it. His wife says he does the exact opposite. I better mean it. And that's what we're supposed to be as scriptures. The Apostle Paul could literally say, follow me as I follow Christ. Woo! I don't know that I can say that. Pick out the bad pieces and try to follow that as I try to follow God. I can't tell you that my example is perfect. The Apostle Paul certainly wasn't perfect. I can't tell you that I have all the answers, but I know who does. And I hope that my example is that people will go, that guy's nuts. Like he loves God. He doesn't have all the answers. He doesn't have it figured out, but he is in love with God, and that is something that I really respect. He really loves his wife, and he really leans into his relationship with the Lord, and he really invests himself in his relationship with his wife. And that means, and you've heard me say this before, if you've ever heard me talking in my podcast or anything that I've done, your ministry starts at home. And a lot of us fail on that, is we're too busy with our hobbies and whatever, and maybe we're drinking too hard, or we're leaning into stuff that we shouldn't be doing, that is not invested in our relationship with God, is not invested in our relationship with our spouse. That's dangerous, and we can be hypocritical. And let me tell you, there are times that I'm a hypocrite. If we're a real person at all with others, we have to know that that's a thing. And at some moment or another, we're going to be a hypocrite. I mean, you catch me on the wrong moment and you'll hear me say a word I shouldn't say. I will sometimes cuss, and I laugh at myself, and I'm like, gosh, after all this time walking with God for 35 years now, I still am human, and I still have flesh, and that's still in there. And, I've had guys go, man, I wish I could control my tongue the way you do. I've never heard you cuss. And I'm like, buddy, catch me at the wrong moment. They're like, dude, I don't believe you cuss. And I'm like, brother, don't put me on a pedestal, dude. Don't do that. You'll catch me at the wrong time. And, I was doing something the other day and was at a house doing a service call, because I still pay my bills doing computer repair. And this blue heeler lunged at me. I didn't see it coming, and it bit the back of my ankle, and it didn't get flesh, because that's the ankle I carry my ankle medical kit on. And the dog hit it and bit into that ankle medical kit, and there was slobber marks on the back of my pant leg. And of course the lady was doing a service call for her and her husband, and she was just shocked and heartbroken and embarrassed, and she ran the dog out, and she's like, I am so sorry. And she's like, I've got to be careful with him, and I'm sorry. And I looked at her, and I was halfway through swearing, and I caught myself, and I was like, boy, that flesh is still in there. And she's a believer, and she laughed, and she's like, I'm sorry. And I leaned down, and I just kind of felt right there, because for a second I thought he got me. And I was like, what's funny is he got my ankle medical kit. He bit into that ankle medical kit, and he hit it and twisted, thinking he was going to get me. So anyway, may the Lord bless you and keep you. Remember, you're human. We know it. We're human, but we need to be real, and we need to live our life for Christ. I got to go. That's one of the guys I'm chaplain calling me. God bless.